Mr. Beast probably just dropped a video called 30 Days Without Food and Water. 1,000 dead grandparents brought back to life. I survived 24 hours on the surface of the sun. Whatever miraculous nonsense he's been up to, it pales in comparison to what I have just accomplished. I complained about something on the internet, and Spotify actually listened to me. This is something that not even Taylor Swift was able to accomplish, okay? You can't just call up Spotify HQ and tell them that their head's up their ass. You know, their head's up their ass. They'll never hear you. No, you gotta rile people up. And I somehow managed to make a video that resonated with so many people that it not only carried this channel into minor relevance, like single-handedly. Not only that, but it also made enough of a splash online that eventually somebody at Spotify caught wind of it and made some changes. So how did I get Spotify's attention in the first place? What did they do to make things right? And most importantly, was it enough? Let's find out. So if you haven't seen the original video, you can go check it out after this, but I'll try to summarize here and just give you a quick refresher so you have the context that you need to understand what I'm talking about. So most of the videos that I uploaded to this channel before this particular video were mini documentaries about the music genre called phonk, the type of music that I happen to make, actually. And it was, at least at the time, a pretty underground genre, but there was a huge moment back in around 2021, if I remember correctly, where Spotify actually gave the genre its own official editorial playlist, like by Spotify. And that's a big deal because that would mean that this niche internet micro genre was getting institutional support from one of the largest streaming services in the world. And so it was a super exciting moment. People had been asking for this thing for years. But the problem was that most of the playlist was completely filled with a trendy subgenre of phonk called drift phonk, which basically started to blow up on TikTok. It's the bass heavy, like cowbell music, basically. And that's fine and all, you know. I like some drift phonk songs, you know. When I'm in the mood for that Sigma grind set, it really hits. So I guess the point of what I'm saying is that by calling the playlist just the general name for the genre, they're basically like rewriting history and misleading an entire generation of people essentially into believing that this is all that there is to the genre and essentially erasing the legacy of some pretty important influences in the scene. And it made no sense for Spotify to organize the playlist like this because in their announcement of the playlist, they mentioned some of these earlier influences, but like I said, they never actually ended up in the playlist. So they cared enough to pay somebody to research the genre before writing this fancy press release, but they don't want to actually hire somebody to curate the playlist who knows anything about that. And another reason it really didn't make any sense is because if you didn't know, Spotify algorithmically curates playlists for every single genre on the website. I actually have a video that uses some of that technology, some of that data to create iceberg charts for every single music genre. So go check that one out after this. And the video I'm talking about in this video. So yeah, they have algorithmically curated playlists for every single genre on the website, and the algorithmic playlist for the phonk genre was way more representative of the genre as a whole. Like, in what world does it make sense for this playlist, phonk, and this playlist, the sound of phonk, to be polar fucking opposites? Like, I'd be willing to bet that there might be 2-3 songs max that these two playlists share. And the only difference between them is that one is curated by a human and one is curated by Spotify's algorithms. In what world does it make sense for those two playlists to be diametrically opposed? So my suggestion to Spotify in this video was to change the existing playlist so that it more accurately represents the genre as a whole. You know, if you're going to call the playlist phonk, you know, show more than one type of subgenre of phonk. And at this point, the playlist was still very early in its growth. Like, it already had 400,000 followers at this point, but now it's got almost 7 million. Because it was so early in its growth, by making these changes, Spotify could have given millions of TikTok users and other people who, you know, discover it through drift phonk a chance to come across the original influences that also fall under that umbrella of phonk. And I also want to point out, this is something that happens very commonly with music genres. We saw it happen with dubstep. Apparently it happened with lo-fi and hyperpop as well. So it's not uncommon for this type of thing to happen. This was the first time it happened to a music genre that, like, I was actively participating in. And so I just wanted to make a video about it and maybe try and just spread awareness at the fact that Spotify is basically homogenizing another genre, like right before our very eyes. So if there was anything to be done about it, I wanted to try. So I released the video. What happened next? There's really no other way to say it. It blew the up. The video just popped off. I don't know what happened. Like a month after I released the video, it just what do they call it? Hockey stick. The hockey stick graph. Yeah. Here's the hockey stick. I told you. This was like my first taste of the internet clout juice. People made react videos to it, which is pretty dope. Shout out to Weaver Beats. And someone even made a parody video.
Does it sound like this? Or does it sound like this?
Number 9. A number 9 large.
So, that was a huge moment for me. It even got some press. This video, this dumb little 6-minute YouTube video got some press. The No Bells blog, that's right. And admittedly, I had not heard of No Bells before this, but No Bells is legit. Like, shout out No Bells. And shout out to Kieran Press Reynolds for the press Reynolds. I did actually try and pitch it to some journalists after it started popping off a little bit more, because I was at that point, Spotify still hadn't done anything, so I was like, well, shit, maybe they'll listen to people with actual like real life influence. So no, didn't have any luck with that. Pretty much everyone just left me on red. But funnily enough, eventually Ryan Celsius hit me up and he was like, hey, there's this guy writing an article for Billboard about phonk. Would you like to be featured in it? And I was like, hell yeah, thanks, Ryan. So Ryan got me an interview basically for this Billboard article, which has now gone down in history for bad reasons. So Elias Light had written a few other articles about this genre. And so I was reaching out to him because I figured, like this guy, has written legit ass articles for legit ass publications. So I reached out to him and I never heard back. But then, like I said, got tapped in with him. We did this phone interview. It was probably like a 20 to 30 minute long interview. And, he like asked me a bunch of different questions about the origins of the genre and the video. And I was like stoked. Like I couldn't wait for this article to finally come out. And it's, it's a chunky article. It's got maybe 15 paragraphs or something like that. And this was what my interview was turned into. Yokai, a phonk connoisseur who chronicles its artists and subgenres on YouTube, used to, quote, not even bother trying to explain to most people what the music was, figuring he'd only elicit blank stares. Now, he says, the genre, quote, has grown to a point where most people have at least a passing familiarity with it. End scene. Yep, that was our interview. I told him I was a phonk connoisseur, said that the genre is very different now, and then I hung up the phone. That was the end of the interview. No. I thought it was funny that side of the story didn't really get fleshed out very much. It more so focused on the drift phonk side of the story. So the reason this article kind of became infamous, at least in the phonk scene, is because, like I said, it kind of glosses over that whole side of it, and the headline itself, which, as you know, 99% of people who see the headline aren't going to read the actual article. I don't think it necessarily makes a difference in this case, but it refers to this hip-hop like trap subgenre as dance music, and I can definitely understand why drift phonk would be lumped into that category, but the rest of the genre really not so much. And it just sucks that I had like a 30-minute phone call with this dude explaining to him how that does not equal that necessarily, but that didn't translate to the headline. I know that sometimes editors write headlines and not the actual journalist who wrote the article, but the reason I say it doesn't make a difference is because that distinction was clearly not taken into account when writing the rest of the article. The distinction itself was kind of glossed over, and that's why pretty much everyone who agreed with my video disliked this article that I was mentioned in. But nonetheless, I appreciated the opportunity. Obviously, that was really cool to say that I was cited in Billboard, but I was never cited in Wikipedia. And man, that just kind of pisses me off, because it's got to be so easy to get a Wikipedia citation. Because not only did I not get cited, But someone who basically plagiarized my video, they got a Wikipedia credit. There's certain things in the Wikipedia page for phonk that were clearly paraphrased from my video. And so I was like, that's weird. Why doesn't the reference go to me? As drift phonk became popular on TikTok, it became more mainstream than the original genre. This in turn made the word phonk become more associated with the drift phonk subgenre. Kind of like an opinion, like there's definitely a citation needed on that, but the only citation goes to this Jackson Crocker guy. But yeah, that was not cool. So we got the YouTube response, we got the press coverage, but Spotify still hadn't changed anything at this point. So I was like, you know what? Let's just go straight to the horse's mouth. Is that how you use that analogy? I went straight to that horse's mouth and I decided to reach out to Spotify directly. And they're pretty tight-lipped about who their actual playlist editors are. Like, they don't just have a list of email addresses for you to contact. So my best bet, unfortunately, was just to try DMing different Spotify accounts and seeing if any of them would respond. I reached out to them, and shockingly enough, one of the accounts actually got back to me. It was Spotify Russia on Twitter. Hello, I'm a music journalist writing an article about the phonk genre. In May, Spotify launched the... Wait, how do you pronounce that in Russian?
Phonk.
Phonk. In May, Spotify Russia launched the phonk playlist, and I'd love to interview the curator of this playlist. Would you be able to help me contact him or her? Thank you, Vaughn. That's my name. I had written freelance articles before. I wasn't totally lying about the fact that I was a freelance journalist, but I maybe did overpromise a little bit about where I would be able to realistically get the article published. Hey, please tell me which magazine the interview will be for. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Please tell us your contact details. Smiley face. So I'm thinking I'm in at this point, you know? So I give them my name, my email address, my phone number, social security number. Thank you for information. Heart. Nice. They've got my information. They're going to reach out to me any day now. So now I just have to wait. They messaged me the next day and said, please write to, and then they gave me an email address. It was a press email. I could tell from the email address that it was designed for press inquiries. So I reach out to them, and then Natalia gets back to me. Thanks, Natalia. Hi, Vaughn. My name is Natalia, Spotify Russia press office. Thanks for reaching out. We shall check regarding an interview opportunity, but it is unlikely we'd be able to proceed. Why? Would you be interested in a comment instead? When thinking about my response to this, I wanted to be very careful. I could tell they already weren't psyched about it because they were like, no, you're not getting an interview. You'll get a comment, if that. So I was like, you know what? That's good enough. I just want to know why. At the end of the day, I want to know why they chose to curate the playlist like this in spite of their obvious knowledge that that's not representative of the genre. So I said, hi, Natalia. This feature is primarily about the origins of the playlist and the phonk community's response to it. While an interview is ideal, being a little pushy there, buddy, a comment responding to this recent video would suffice as well. It summarizes some of the community's confusion regarding the playlist curation, so a response from Spotify would certainly add helpful context. And now that was on February 3rd of 2022. 3 weeks later, Russia did a bad thing. So bad that Spotify eventually shut down Spotify Russia. So rest in peace, Spotify Russia. That was where that exchange ended. That lead went nowhere. So the video blows up in late March, early April, pretty much right as Spotify Russia gets shut down. So unfortunate timing. So I'm thinking by April 4th, the videos hit 700,000 views. I've made enough of a splash. This has clearly resonated with some people. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep reaching out to those motherfuckers at Spotify. Do you remember me talking about that algorithmically curated playlist for the genre and how it was way more accurate than the editorial playlist that was handpicked by a human? Well, as it turns out, as a side effect of my video popping off, that playlist also popped off quite a bit. This playlist had suddenly gone from 2,500 followers to almost 12,000. So I reached out to the guy who actually created these algorithmic playlists, Glenn McDonald, Data Alchemist. And I was like, look, dude, this playlist of yours, this particular algorithmic playlist is really blowing up because of how accurate it is. So I just wanted to say good job, and also check out this video and maybe forward it to the person who runs the playlist. So I didn't hear back from him for, I think like A week? God, I'm so needy. So I reached back out after the video hit 1 million views because I was really feeling myself at that point. I was like, that makes a statement. 1 million people decided to tune in to this video about how you guys are fucking up so bad. Hi, Glenn. Just wanted to circle back on this as the video essay has now surpassed 1 million views. Chart metrics shows that it's also helped tens of thousands of listeners discover the Sound of Funk playlist, now the 3rd most popular Every Noise playlist. So yeah, you can see here that this website shows the top playlists from the sounds of Spotify in the Sound of Funk. Look at that, baby. 28-day change, 438%. Just below the Sound of Pop and the Sound of Goddamn Everything. With Spotify suspended in Russia, the editorial funk playlist is now dormant. That was true. It hadn't been updated in a very long time after that. And the numbers suggest that fans want a playlist that more accurately represents the genre. So I would love the opportunity to speak with you or someone else at Spotify about revitalizing the editorial funk playlist. And then, just like 15 minutes later, I received a freaking response. I actually received a response from somebody at Spotify, except for Spotify Russia. Rest in peace. He said the editorial list hasn't been abandoned. So I guess that person just wasn't doing their job then, if it wasn't abandoned. And I passed your video along to the editor. So yeah, shout out to Glenn. He sent it directly to the playlist editor, which was huge. That was a huge moment because obviously that's what I was trying to accomplish with the video itself, to get it in front of the person who could actually make a difference. And in doing so, I guess I kind of made a difference. But you know how it goes. A few months went by and nothing had changed. Still. So you know what? I made a bitchy ass tweet. 3 months had passed since Glenn sent it to the playlist editor. And so I said, when this video hit 1 million views a few months ago, I finally got in contact with someone at Spotify who sent the video to the anonymous playlist editor. 1 million views later, nothing has changed. Spotify can't even be bothered to pretend it cares about musicians. Scathing, I must say. And then you know what happened? You'll be shocked to hear this. But a few more months went by and nothing had changed. So I made a bitchy ass YouTube comment instead.
And we have nearly 200 editors who are spread all across the world. The cultural expertise of editors is really important to our philosophy. We have experts in genres, in markets that really know music and music culture inside out. It's really about thinking about that scene, that music culture, and representing it both in our playlists as well as outside of it.
Really? Really? So they're basically bragging here about how cultured and in touch their playlist editors are. Meanwhile, this playlist editor has allegedly been sent my video calling out Spotify for being out of touch with the culture of this particular genre. Wildly so. I'd love to believe Selena 842, but considering how irresponsibly some of the playlists are curated, I'm skeptical. My video about Spotify's funk playlist goes into more detail about the issue. It's subtle plug there, buddy. It deeply resonated with the funk community, now sitting at over 3 million views and 200,000 likes. Nice. And even though the video was sent directly to the playlist editor by a Spotify employee, nothing ever changed. So I'm sure you can understand why I'm skeptical when Spotify's editorial team claims to care about representing music culture. Please do better. The please do better does it for me. And yeah, I liked my own comment. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm going to like my own video, this video. I'm going to go like it right now. And if you beat me there, if you beat me to the like button, I'll give you $1 million or something. So yeah, I left that bitchy ass YouTube comment. That would have been almost a year ago, actually. That was 11 months ago. As of a few weeks ago, the YouTube video had 3.8 million views, 260,000 likes. The Sound of Funk playlist was the biggest algorithmic genre playlist on Spotify. And mind you, there's one for every genre on the platform. So that's a lot. At this point, the video had done its work. The video had kind of tapered off a bit, as you can see. And then I get an email, not just any email. It's an email directly from Spotify saying you've been added to a playlist, not just any playlist, one of their playlists. Funk Origins is a new playlist. 18 followers. This shit is fresh. But yeah, Spotify finally wised up and created a separate playlist for the rest of the genre. And honestly, I do think that after all this time has passed, that's honestly a better idea than what I was shooting for. Again, what I was suggesting in my video was that they completely change the way the playlist is curated so that it includes a more diverse selection of tracks from the genre. And like I said, that's because the playlist was early in its growth and it could have helped re-educate. That sounds really, I'm gonna re-educate you. It would have helped set the record straight for a lot of people, I think, on what that genre actually is and what phonk is. But yeah, I think after all this time has passed, creating a separate playlist for everything else in the genre is probably a better idea, just because at this point I think it's too far gone. You can't just switch up on a playlist with 7 million followers and totally change the stylistic like curation of it. I do have a few reservations. I will say, as of the time of recording this video, none of the tracks have been swapped out yet, and that was well over 2 weeks ago. I think we're closing in on 3 weeks ago at this point. And obviously with editorial playlists, you like to see them updated at least weekly, and you don't have to swap out all the tracks, just like maybe adding a few of them even. But no, all of the tracks have just been sitting there for a long ass time. And it does seem like a lot of the tracks are just copied and pasted from the algorithmic playlist. Like even just looking at the top 10, I'm gonna search in the playlist and see which one of these are in here. That's not in there. That's 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 in there. It's not in there. It's not in there. That's in there. It's not in there. So what is that? Like 60%? So yeah, 60% of the tracks or something like that. Maybe more than half. I only counted the first 10 out of 50. A lot of them are just copied and pasted from the algorithmic playlist. And this is, I believe, the first batch of tracks to ever go on the playlist. So I think it's a good starting point. I do stand by what I said about that playlist and it being an accurate representation of the genre. So I'm not upset necessarily with the idea of using that as a jumping off point. But people follow editorial playlists under the assumption that a human is handpicking those tracks. The algorithmic playlist is actively losing followers, and I think it's because it's a catalog playlist. Over 75% of the songs weren't even released in the last year and a half. So what do you expect? If they treat this new playlist like the algorithmic playlist and just let it collect dust, maybe get 1 or 2 new tracks every few weeks, it's gonna start dying before it's even gotten any life breathed into it. I am cautiously optimistic though, because the tracks that weren't just copied and pasted, like the ones that somebody would have had to hand pick because they weren't just copied and pasted, they do add to it by giving the genre a little bit more context, I think. You know, the playlist is titled Phonk Origins, so I think rightfully so, a lot of the tracks that they handpicked aren't necessarily, they aren't phonk in the modern sense, I guess. They're the earlier influences, the Lil Ugly Mane, Denzel Curry, Space Ghost Perp, DJ Screw, 3-6 Mafia, Project Pat, UGK, DJ Zerk. Like, there's plenty of people who were handpicked for this playlist that I feel like the person who handpicked them were probably trying to show the fact that like, yo, I know where this stuff comes from. I got you loud and clear. It's almost like they knew they f***ed up so bad, but they knew they had waited way too long to course correct. They were essentially like, hey, I know it's been 2.5 years since we dropped the original playlist, but here's a completely separate playlist with a bunch of music from the more accurate algorithmic playlist of ours. We also threw in a bunch of early influences that we mentioned in our fancy little press release, but didn't include in the playlist for some reason. Anyways, bye. So maybe it's too early to tell, but this playlist is a step in the right direction, I think. I genuinely hope I'm not making a fool of myself by remaining hopeful that they'll actually update this playlist sometime in the future, the near future, hopefully. You know, they talk a lot about how much they care about artists, and I don't know, I'm hoping that this time, this playlist is a sign that this time they actually mean it. What do you think? Do you think I'm going to look like a big, stupid idiot for giving Spotify the benefit of the doubt? Vote now in the comments. We'll find out. Anyways, you know the drill. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Patreon if you want to support the channel and help me make more videos like this, and join the Discord. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace.